All right, so Chris, I know you're not in this current administration, but I just want to get your take on how this could all work. So generally, sovereign wealth funds, they're usually run with surpluses, often due to commodities like oil. In fact, Norway, the biggest one, it's often called the oil fund. It's from oil surplus money that they invest. The U.S., however, we have a deficit, and it seems to be growing. How would that work here in the U.S.?
So funding is it's kind of like the Federal Reserve. We have a central bank as well that's it's independent. Obviously, this is not going to be independent, where it's going to be run likely by the Treasury Department. But it certainly gives the opportunity, I think, for the United States to be able to start seeing gains both in the private and public markets, which we see none of now. Allowing for perhaps us to be able to dig out of that deficit. The federal, because the dollar is the reserve currency, we have a lot more flexibility in how we approach something like a sovereign wealth fund. But I would say that for important to your viewers, I think we're a long way from here to there. This may require Congress's approval, which is going to require 60 votes in the Senate, which would obviously require bipartisan support. So I think that there's a lot of conversations that still have to take place in order for us to get to a place where we're actually standing something up. But over the next 90 days, the president's asked Secretary Bessent to be able to outline what it would look like, how it would run, how he would execute on something like this. So it's certainly a mammoth undertaking that would put the U.S. at par with a lot of other OECD countries.
All right. In your mind, what would be the upside here? The president mentioned using the sovereign wealth fund to buy something like TikTok. That would be a kind of out of the ordinary investment for most of these sovereign wealth funds. They generally invest in, equities and private markets and things like that, as opposed to a media company. What's the big upside, especially for the taxpayer, if we do have this sovereign wealth fund in your mind?
Well, look, I mean, again, as I said before, the U.S. right now is locked out of investing in private and public markets, except for we have a couple of things that are like the OPEC and the International Development Corporation and others that really do some of this work for the United States. But if you do it on a much grander scale, the taxpayer actually should be able to realize the gains of market upsides, both in the public and private markets, as you said, equities, that we don't see now. And so this perhaps could offset some tax policy or some tariff issues or other things that we would otherwise gain revenue for the U.S. government. Again, many other countries have something like this.
So again, I know you're not in the room where these discussions are happening, but potentially, and you mentioned some other ways that the government has funds and invests in things. Another great example is EQT that invested in Palantir, stock that's been surging recently and surging this morning. What would be the difference between something like that? EQT, often called the CIA's venture capital arm, and this sovereign wealth fund. What would be the difference from those other investment vehicles and this one?
I think it'd just be a much grander scale. I think you'd see that the dollars be a lot larger, and I think probably the mandate would be quite large. I think you'd see investment across the world, with the U.S. leading efforts on that. So I think that it could be quite significant in the dollar size and the way that we exert our hard and soft power around the world, which is what, again, we're lacking in this right now, which is it's a vacuum that's filled by the Middle East and on our European allies and many others that do a lot of this work, and the U.S. is just absent from those conversations.